so great to see so much diversity in this one little area. My name is Cassandra Vizon. I am the president of PRISM at NAU. I see a lot of my babies in the audience, so I'm just... PRISM is one of Arizona's largest student-led LGBTQ organizations. Just if you didn't know. Bernie Sanders carries a simple yet powerful message in his campaign, a future to believe in. This message conveys to so many demographics, so many ages, so many people in so many ways. Here in Flagstaff, it resonates with a huge college student population. It sits with people of color. It sits with LGBTQIA people, and if you're like me, it sits with all three. I am a proud queer woman of color who is also a student leader at Northern Arizona University. I graduate in May. And although I'm extremely hesitant about the future that might await me, I want a future I can believe in. More than that, I want my students to be able to afford to stay in school. I want to know when I leave here in May that they will be protected and taken care of just like all of you. I want my LGBTQ family to be able to afford shelter above their heads. I want fellow Latinos, Latinas to be able to have their families safe from things like walls and hate. I want all people of color to feel safe and protected from the people that are supposed to protect them. I want my disabled friends and students to have accessibility, and I want a leader who is dedicated to providing more of it. I want us all to have better access to health care. I want college students to have the opportunities to take care of their mental illnesses at an affordable rate. I want true religious freedom that every religion benefits from. I want my parents to not have to worry like they do now. I want a better future to believe in. People often forget to recognize that our great country has so much intersectionality within it. It is said that the United States of America is a melting pot of culture and diversity. This is proof right here. Few leaders want to embrace this fact. Bernie Sanders is focusing on it. Bernie wants not a better future for himself, but a better one for people like you and I. He will make a future for my students better. He will make the future of my peers better, and he will make the future for you better. People respecting individuals and sexual minorities is the biggest student-led at NAU, but like I said, one of the biggest in Arizona. This organization has been fighting for 30 years this year in the LGBTQ movement. Without realizing it, we have been fighting the same battles alongside Senator Bernie Sanders. PRISM strives to educate and empower our LGBTQ family to continuously fight for our rights and equality. Marriage equality is not the end, and we have a lot of work left to do. We believe with the power of Bernie Sanders leading this country, we can get so much more accomplished. We work at this movement to ensure we have a future to believe in, and we will never stop fighting for the future that we deserve. As we power through another academic year, we can't help but feel the burn. Thank you for listening, and now I present to you our State Director, Jose Miranda.
Good evening, Flagstaff. Who's feeling the burn? Incredible. Thank you guys so much for being here tonight. I just want to say thank you. The reason we're here in Arizona, the reason we're doing so well is because of the support that we received here statewide from Tucson to Phoenix and, of course, all the way up here to Flagstaff. So a big thank you. Now, we start started this campaign here in Arizona officially in November, but even before then, your efforts were the reason that, I came on staff here. We had such a large base of support that we were one of the actual earlier states to start here so much work. Some of the folks that are some of the council members and supervisors that, just, and of course you guys that have been just wonderful. Now, elections days are tomorrow. Who's going to go out and vote? Their neighbors and their coworkers. Not very far from the start of this program. I just want to say, it'll be. I just want to say, tomorrow is really important for us, and here in Arizona, we are literally within the margins. We need all your help, all the help we can get to make sure that that person that you talk with every day that you might not know whether they're voting for Bernie or not. I'm sure you've had that conversation and you know whether they're voting for Bernie. But we need all the help we can get here in Arizona. Tomorrow is going to be the day that we make sure that we let everybody else know that Arizona is Bernie country. So thank you guys so much for your support. Thank you.
an amazing day in northern Arizona, but tomorrow is what this event is about. If we do our jobs, and we have done our jobs, Bernie will add Arizona nomination for President of the United States. We have had the privilege of watching as an idea became a spark became a fire, and that fire, through the collective actions of millions and millions of America, has blazed across this nation. The Bernie for President campaign, like all of his campaigns for the last 35 years, is remarkable for so many reasons, yet at its core, its success and its resonancy is so simple. It is rooted in the principles of equity and fairness, and based on the belief that one of the primary fundamental roles of government is to ensure that those with money, power, and influence do not steamroll or railroad those who do not have money, power, and influence. What Bernie says is what so many of us know intuitively, that it is not by accident that the forces which shape our economy and our political system evolved. It is by intention. It is not by accident that despite record stock market profits over the last 6 years, poverty rates in Coconino County have gone up some 30%, and 45% of youth in rural Coconino County, many indigenous youth, live below the poverty line. That is unacceptable. It is not by accident that Arizona's governor threatens to withhold funds from cities and counties who choose to raise the minimum wage. Yet Coconino County has twice the state average of levels of full-time workers who live below the poverty line. It's unacceptable. We owe Bernie a huge thanks, but we also owe you your energy, your advocacy, and your commitment. So on behalf of the thousands of Northern Arizona residents and citizens who have worked so hard for Bernie, I want to introduce to you the distinguished senator from the great state of Vermont, the next President of the United States, Bernie Sanders!
Thank you all very much for coming out. Let me begin by thanking the Harrison Fjord Band, Cassandra Bison, Jose, our State Director, Jose Miranda, and let me thank also Arthur Babbitt for that vigorous introduction. When we began this campaign about 10 months ago, we were 70 points behind Hillary Clinton. 70 points. CBS poll just came out the same. In other words, we are making some progress. We have We have now won 9 state primaries and caucuses. It was just announced this afternoon or this morning that we won Democrats abroad. And tomorrow, if we have a large voter turnout, if all of you and your uncles and your aunts and your moms and your dads and your kids and your brothers and your sisters and all your friends and your coworkers, if everybody comes out to vote, we're going to win here in Arizona. And tomorrow, amazing. There was a poll in the Utah newspapers. Utah is one of the most conservative states in America. It has not voted for a Democratic candidate for president in 50 years. This is what the poll said 2 days ago. Sanders beats Trump by 11 points. There was a poll that just came out a few hours ago from CNN. Just can't do it. Now, polls are polls. They go up, they go down. We take them with a grain of salt. But this poll is very consistent with many other polls. Let me read you some numbers. Nationally, this is a CNN poll. Hillary Clinton does well against Donald Trump. She beats him 53, 41, 12 points. We beat him by 20 points. Same poll. Hillary Clinton loses to John Kasich by 6 points. She loses. We beat Kasich. Hillary Clinton and Ted Cruz are in a tie, 48. All of us know that we have got to do everything we can to make certain that a Republican does not occupy the White House next year. I believe, objectively speaking, there is no question but that you are looking at the strongest Democratic candidate to defeat the Republicans. And it is not just polls. There's something more important, and you are demonstrating it here tonight. Democrats win when millions of people are excited and hopeful for the future and are prepared to get engaged in the political process. That's when Democrats win. Republicans win when people are demoralized, when the voter turnout is low, and when the billionaires buy elections. I don't think any fair-minded person would disagree with the assertion that our campaign has the energy, has the momentum, and can bring out large numbers of people. Now, our campaign is doing as well as it is. It has the momentum and the energy for one very simple reason. We are doing something very unusual in contemporary American politics. We are telling the truth. Now, the truth is not always pleasant. That is true for our personal lives. It is true for politics. But just as in the case with our personal lives, it is imperative that we have the courage to look at reality as it is. If we simply push it under the rug and ignore it, as media often does, we will not effectively address our problems. And that is what this campaign is doing. Number one, when we look at the many crises facing this country, at the top of my list is the fact that we have a corrupt campaign finance system that is undermining American democracy. Democracy is not a complicated idea. What democracy means, you got to vote, and you got to vote, and you got to vote. Majority wins. Democracy does not mean billionaires buy. Democracy does not mean the Koch brothers and a handful of other billionaires spending $900 million to elect candidates who represent the wealthy and the powerful. That is not democracy. That is oligarchy, and we are not going to accept it. Too many people have fought and died to defend democracy. We are not going to allow this country to become an oligarchic society. But it is not just big money buying elections. What we are seeing all over this country are cowardly Republican governors trying to suppress the vote. Now, we have in this country, sadly, one of the lowest voter turnouts to increase voter turnout, not decrease voter turnout. Republican governors in a dozen different ways are trying to make it harder for poor people, for old people, for young people, for people of color to vote. That is a disgrace. That is unacceptable. And if I am elected President of the United States, trust me, our Department of Justice will take on these Republican governors. What American democracy is, who's a citizen of this country has the right to vote. End of discussion. And I say to those cowardly Republican governors, if you don't have the guts to participate in a free and fair and democratic election, get out of politics, get another job. What this campaign is about is revitalizing American democracy, making sure that every American knows that in a democracy, he and she are powerful people if they exercise that power. But our campaign is not just about ending a corrupt campaign finance system. It is about ending a rigged economy. And let me tell you what a rigged economy is, because the television news and the radio guys and the newspapers are not going to tell you, so let me have the honor of telling you. What a rigged economy is that today, believe it or not, the top 1/10% now owns almost as much wealth as the bottom 90%. What a rigged economy is about is the wealthiest 20 people owning more wealth than the bottom 150 million Americans, half our population. And let me give you another example of what a rigged economy is about. The wealthiest family in the United States is the Walton family that owns Walmart. The Walton family pays wages to its Walmart employees that are so low that many of those workers are forced to go on Medicaid, food stamps, and subsidized housing. And you know whose taxes pay for those food stamps and Medicaid? You do. So you have the absurd situation where workers in America. That is crazy. So I say to the Walton family, get off of welfare, pay your workers a living wage. And here's what else a rigged economy is about. In the last 30 years, we have seen a massive explosion of technology. Almost all workers are producing more than workers used to. And yet, despite all over this country, millions of people working longer hours for lower wages. We have people who are working not one job, but 2 jobs. We have people who are working 3 jobs. We have moms working. We got dads working. We got kids working. Turns out that as Americans, we work the longest hours of any people in the industrialized world. And yet, after all of that work, when mom and dad are out working and not paying enough attention to the kids, after all of that, 58% of all new income generated today goes to the top 1%. You guys ready for a radical idea? Together, we are going to create an economy that works for all of us, not just the 1%. But it's not just a corrupt campaign finance system. It is not just a rigged economy. It is a broken criminal justice system. Now, what this campaign is about is asking the American people to think outside of the box, not accept the status quo as the reality that we have to continue. We are the wealthiest country in the history of the world. You tell me why we should be having more people in jail than any other country on earth. And the people in jail are disproportionately African American, Latino, and Native Americans. And let me tell you some of the reasons why we have more people in jail. Today, it's not discussed at all. Youth unemployment is off the charts. For high school graduates who are white, youth unemployment, 33%. Latino, 36%. African American, 51%. You ready for another radical idea? Together, for our young people, We're going to invest in education and jobs, not jails and incarceration. And when we talk about a broken criminal justice system, all of us are tired of seeing the videos on television of unarmed people, often minorities, being shot and killed by police officers. Now, I was a mayor for 8 years. I've worked with police departments all over my state and police officers all over the country. The truth is, vast majority of police officers are honest, hardworking, and have a very difficult job. But when a police officer, like any other public official, breaks the law, that officer must be held accountable. We have got to demilitarize local police departments. We have got to create police departments that reflect the diversity of the communities they serve. We have got to rethink the failed war on drugs. Today, and over the last 30 years, millions of Americans have police records for possession of marijuana. And a police record is not a joke when you're out applying for a job. Lives are ruined. Kids can't get jobs, then they do bad things to get income, and they end up in jail. In my view, right now, we have under the Federal Controlled Substance Act, at the Schedule I level is marijuana, right alongside heroin. Now, people and scientists argue about the pluses and minuses of marijuana, but all of you know marijuana is not heroin. And that is why I have introduced legislation to take marijuana out of the Federal Controlled Substance Act. States, as you all know, it is a decision of the states to decide whether to legalize marijuana or not. But in my view, the federal government should not make it a federal crime. When we talk about drugs in my state of Vermont, in neighboring New Hampshire, all over this country, we have an epidemic of heroin addiction and opiate addiction. Every day, people are dying from overdoses. In my view, when we talk about drug addiction and substance abuse, we need a revolution in mental health care in America. When people need help, if they are addicted or if they are facing mental crises, campaign funds. 6 months from now. Now, sadly but truthfully, it requires hundreds of millions of dollars to run a national winning campaign. When we began this campaign, we had no money, no political organization, very little name recognition outside of Vermont. And we had to make a decision. Should we do what every other candidate does and start a super PAC? We agreed with you. And after about 1/10 of 1 second, we concluded we don't represent the billionaires. We don't represent Wall Street. We don't represent the drug companies. We don't represent corporate America. We are not going to have a super PAC, but we're going to do fundraising in a very different way. And what we did was pretty radical. We simply said to the American people, look, if you want real change in this country, if you want a candidate who's going to take on all of the special interest in the billionaire class, go to berniesanders.com and send us a contribution. And what happened, honest to God, is something that in a million years I would not have believed. As of today, we have received well over 5 million individual contributions. Now, Secretary Clinton recently announced that she has received 1 million individual contributions. That is very good. We have received 2 million individual contributions. I mean, 2 million, not 2 million, 2 million individual donors making over 5 million contributions. And that is, as I understand it, unprecedented for this point in a campaign. Anybody know what the average contribution is? I don't know why. I love that. I love that people know that. And you know why? Because that in itself, over 5 million individual contributions, $27 on average. That is revolutionary. And what that shows us, and that should give us hope for the future, is that when you have a campaign that speaks to the needs of the American people will respond. To paraphrase Abraham Lincoln at Gettysburg, this is a campaign of the people, by the people, and for the people. Now, Secretary Clinton has chosen to raise her campaign funds in a very different way. She has several super PACs. Her largest super PAC recently reported raising $25 million from special interest, $15 million from Wall Street alone. Also raised money from the fossil fuel industry and the drug companies. And in addition to that, as many of you may know, Secretary Clinton has given speeches on Wall Street behind closed doors for $225,000 a speech. Now, as I've said before, I think that if you get paid $225,000 a speech, and there were many speeches, this speech must be of extraordinary brilliance. It must contain wisdom that will transform our planet. It must be written in Shakespearean prose. And if that speech is so great, it should be shared with the American people. Now, Secretary Clinton said, well, she is prepared to release her transcripts if other people are prepared to release their transcripts. So let me make a dramatic announcement tonight. Right on the eve of the Arizona primary. You all ready? I am prepared to release all of the transcripts of the speeches I gave to Wall Street. Are you ready? Here they are. Now, I just don't know why, but I have not been invited to give a speech to Wall Street. Not for $225,000, not for $25,000, not for $2,000, not for $2, not for nothing. But if Wall Street wanted to invite me to give a speech before them, this is what I would say, and by the way, I would be happy to release the transcript. What I would say is that the greed and recklessness and illegal behavior of Wall Street drove this country into the worst economic downturn since the Great Depression. And what I would say is that Congress, against my vote, bailed them out because the big banks were too big to fail. Well, I would remind Wall Street that 3 out of the 4 largest banks in this country today are bigger than they were when we bailed them out because they were too big to fail. I would mention to Wall Street that the 6 largest financial institutions in this country have assets of some $10 trillion, 58% equivalent of the GDP of this country. They issue 2/3 of the credit cards in this country and 1/3 of the mortgages. And what I would tell them, as I have told the American people, when you have a handful of banks with that much economic and political power, what we need to do is reestablish Glass-Steagall legislation, and most importantly, we need to break them up. Now, I could be wrong, but I doubt if that speech would get me $225,000 from Wall Street. Now, this campaign has done well because we listen to ordinary Americans and not just billionaire campaign contributors. And by the way, we listen a lot to the working people of this country. And what workers in Arizona and across this country have told me is they can't make it on $7.25 an hour minimum wage or $8 or $9. And what they are telling me, and I agree, we need to raise the minimum wage to a living wage, $15 an hour. And my understanding is that right here in Flagstaff, your city council is prepared to go forward and provide a $15 an hour minimum wage. And I applaud them. This campaign is listening to senior citizens and disabled veterans. And what disabled vets and seniors are telling me is they cannot make it on $11,000 or $12,000 a year Social Security. And you know what? Nobody can make it on $11,000 or $12,000 a year. And that is why I will reject all Republican efforts to cut Social Security, and I've got bad news for them. We're not going to cut Social Security. We're going to expand Social Security benefits. This campaign is listening to women. And women are telling me they are tired of working for 79 cents on the dollar compared to men. And they should be tired, because this is nothing but old-fashioned sexism, and we are going to end that. And I know that every man here tonight will stand with the women in the fight for pay equity. This campaign is listening to young people. And one of the most gratifying aspects of this entire campaign so far is that in state after state, we are winning the young people's vote by very large margins. And obviously, what that should tell everybody in this country is the young people, the future of America, are fighting for a new America, a new set of priorities. The young people are tired of establishment politics, establishment economics. They have a different vision for this country, and I thank them for that. And what young people are telling me is, why should it happen today that for the first time in the modern history of this country, young people may well have a lower standard of living than their parents? This is the American dream in reverse. My parents never had any money, but they worked hard, and they hoped that my brother and I could do better than they did financially, and we have. That's been the American dream. Parents working hard so their kids could do better. It is not acceptable to me that that American dream is disappearing. And we're going to create an economy that rebuilds and rekindles that American dream. And what young people are also telling me is, they say, Bernie, everybody told us that education is enormously important. They told us to get the best education that we could. They said it was good for ourselves and good for the country. And yet now we are leaving school $30,000, $50,000 in debt. We should not be punishing millions of young people for doing the right thing. Think outside of the box and outside of the status quo. Think for a minute. Everybody knows we live in a competitive global economy. We need the best educated workforce in the world. Why in God's name are we forcing millions of people to pay decades of debt because they chose to do the right thing and get an education? That's crazy. So we're going to do two things. Number one, everybody here knows that 100 years ago, people with great foresight fought for free public education, first grade to the 12th grade, an enormous achievement. But the world and the economy have changed. Today, people need more education than just a 12th grade education. So, in the past, first grade to 12th grade public education was great. You graduated high school 50 years ago, you can go out and get a great job. The world has changed, and that is why I believe when we talk about public education today, we must insist that public colleges and universities be tuition free. This is not a radical idea. It exists in Germany. It exists in Scandinavia. And you know what? People don't know this. To a significant degree, it existed in this country 50 years ago. 50 years ago, you could go to the great public colleges and universities in America, University of California, City College in New York City, state colleges all over this country, tuition was virtually free. If we could do it 50 years ago, we can do it today. And we have got to deal with the crisis of student debt. What we propose is that people with student debt refinance their loans at the lowest possible interest rates they can find. This will substantially lower student debt in this country. Now, I am often criticized by my opponent, by the establishment. They say, well, Bernie Sanders giving away a lot of free stuff. Santa Claus, giving away. Now, I want you to think about this. When Wall Street crashed because of their illegal behavior and greedy actions, the Congress bailed them out. That was just wonderful. That's what the ruling class wanted, and that's what happened. Now, I happen to think that today we should establish a tax on Wall Street speculation. And that would bring in more than enough money to make public colleges and universities tuition free and substantially lower student debt. When Wall Street crashed, middle class bailed them out. Now it is their time to help the middle class. This campaign is listening to the Latino community. And what the Latino community is saying is they are tired of living in the shadows, tired of living in fear, tired of being exploited, as 11 million people in this country are undocumented. They are tired of the ugliness of people like Sheriff Joe Arpaio. They are tired of the ugly insults from people like Donald Trump. And what they are saying, and I agree, the time is long overdue for this country to move to comprehensive immigration reform and a path toward citizenship. And let me say that if Congress does not do its job and pass comprehensive immigration reform, I will use all of the powers available to me as President of the United States, our executive power, to make sure that we protect those people today who are living in fear. The goal of a sane immigration policy is to unite families, not divide families. The goal of a sane immigration policy is to end the deportations we are now seeing. This campaign is listening to our brothers and sisters in the African American community. And what they are saying is, how could in this country we see a situation like we are seeing in Flint, Michigan, where children are being poisoned by excessive lead in the water? How in America, the wealthiest country in the history of the world, can we see minority community after community with outrageous high levels of unemployment, with schools that are failing, with healthcare systems that are totally inadequate. And what my brothers and sisters in the African American community ask me, how does it happen that we can spend trillions of dollars on a disastrous war in Iraq, but we cannot rebuild the inner cities of America? And let me say something about Flint, because I was there, and I talked to the families impacted. What I heard was literally incomprehensible. It was hard for me, honest to God, to register what people were saying. Children in America in 2016 being poisoned. But if you think that it is only Flint that has a crumbling water system, you would be mistaken. Hundreds of other communities are struggling with inadequate and antiquated water systems and wastewater plants. In my state of Vermont, we have many bridges which are in massive need of repair, roads, potholes all over America, traffic congestion, airports need work. Our rail system needs major upgrading. Metropolitan rail systems all over the country need work. Our levees, our dams. This is America. We should not be having a crumbling infrastructure. Instead of giving tax breaks to billionaires or fighting wars that we never should have gotten in the first place, we're going to rebuild our infrastructure. And a $1 trillion investment over 5 years creates 13 million good-paying jobs. This campaign is listening to the Native American community. And I have had the privilege of meeting with tribal leaders here in Arizona, in fact, all over this country. Anybody who has studied American history for 3 minutes knows how shamefully the Native American people have been treated from the day the first settlers came to this country. Native Americans have been cheated, they have been lied to, and treaties they signed have been abrogated. We owe the Native American people a deep, deep debt of gratitude that, in fact, we can never repay. They have taught us so much, and have enriched our culture, and maybe most significantly, they have taught us that it is imperative that we live with nature, as part of nature, rather than destroy nature. As President of the United States, I will begin the process of treating the Native American people with the respect and dignity they deserve. I am a member of the U.S. Senate Committee on the Environment. And I have talked to scientists throughout our country and throughout the world. The debate is over. Climate change is real. It is caused by human activity. It is already causing massive damage in our country and all over the world. This is not a debatable issue. The moral thing to do is to make certain that we leave this planet in a way that is healthy and habitable for our kids and future generations. We have got to summon the courage to take on the fossil fuel industry and to tell them that their short-term profits are not more important than the future of this planet. We have got to work with countries all over the world. This is not an American issue, it's an international issue. We work with China, Russia, India in moving away from fossil fuel to energy efficiency and sustainable energy. All of you know that your beautiful state of Arizona has an extraordinary natural resource. It's called the sun. And as president, I will help the people of Arizona build the solar facilities and have the solar panels that they need. Arizona can be producing electricity not only for this state, but for the entire West. That's the future of America. Now, I have been criticized roundly for saying this, so let me say it again. In my view, health care is a right of all people, not a privilege. There is something very wrong when every other major country on earth, the United Kingdom, France, Germany, Holland, Scandinavia, Canada, every major country guarantees health care to all people except the United States. Now, I'm a member of the committee that wrote the Affordable Care Act. It has done some very important and positive things. We have done away with the obscenity of pre-existing conditions. 17 million Americans now have health insurance as a result of the ACA, and we have done away with discrimination against women who are paying higher premiums than they should have. But here is the other reality, and that reality is, despite the success of the Affordable Care Act, 29 million people still have no health insurance. Many more are underinsured with high deductibles and copayments. Sound familiar? And we are being ripped off in an unconscionable way by the greed of the drug companies. Drug companies are charging us by far the highest prices in the world for the medicine we need. Situation is so crazy that 1 out of 5 Americans cannot afford the medicine their doctors prescribe. And then on top of all of that, we are spending much, much more per capita on health care than any other country. We spend almost 3 times what the British do. They guarantee health care to all. 50% more than the French, much more than the Canadians. Now, I believe, my opponent does not, but I do believe, that the American people have the courage and the willingness to take on the private insurance industry, to take on the drug companies, and to move this country to a Medicare for all, single-payer healthcare system. And when we do that, we save middle-class families many thousands of dollars a year on their health care costs. Now, all of you know that change, real change, never takes place from the top on down. It always takes place from the bottom on up. When workers 100 or more years ago were being ruthlessly exploited, overworked, underpaid, they said, we are going to form unions and we're going to fight for our rights and our dignity. Millions of workers came together to form unions. The civil rights movement in this country resulted from millions of African Americans and white allies and other allies saying over hundreds of years that this country will not be based on racism, bigotry, and segregation. And many of those people who took on the racist, some of them were beaten, some of them were jailed, some of them were killed. But finally, the American people came together and said, racism will not be what America is about. People forget this, but 100 years ago, not a long time in a historical perspective, 100 years ago, women in America did not have the right to vote. They could not go to the schools they wanted to go to. They could not do the jobs they wanted to do 100 years ago. But women and their male allies said, sorry, in America, women will not be second-class citizens. And women fought back. They went to jail. They waged hunger strikes. Some died to make sure that women got the rights they were entitled to and that we fought against sexism. Okay? If we were here in this beautiful amphitheater 7 years ago, not a long time at all, somebody jumps up and says, Bernie, you know, I think by the year 2015, gay marriage will be legal in 50 states in this country. The person next to that person would have said, you're crazy. What are you smoking? Nobody would have believed that could have happened. But what has happened over decades is the gay community and their straight allies took on the vicious hatred and bigotry that was out there, stood up to it, and made it clear that in America, people have the right to love whoever they want to love, regardless of gender. And let me give you an even more contemporary example of how change comes about. If we were here 4 or 5 years ago and somebody jumped up and said, you know, Bernie, this $7.25 minimum wage is really a starvation wage. It really is awful. I think we should raise that minimum wage to, say, $15 an hour. What people in the room would have said, $15 an hour? You're nuts. That's double what it is right now. We can never get $15 an hour. But workers in the fast food industry, in McDonald's, in Burger King, in Wendy's, they went out on strike. They stood up, they fought back. And then you know what happened? A couple of years ago, Seattle, $15 an hour. San Francisco, Los Angeles, Oregon, $15 an hour. New York State, $15 an hour. And hopefully Flagstaff, $15 an hour. What is my point? My point is that the only way we bring about real change is when millions of people look around them and say, you know, this status quo is not acceptable. We have got to change. We have got to rid ourselves of racism and sexism and homophobia. We've got to rid ourselves of the exploitation of millions of workers. And I think what is happening right now, and what this campaign is about, is all over this country. People are looking around them, and they're saying, what is going on in America? Why is it that we have more income and wealth inequality than any other major country on earth? Why is it that we are the only major country that does not have paid family and medical leave? Why is it that millions of our young people are suffocating with student debt? Why is it that we have the highest rate of childhood poverty of almost any major country on earth, over 20%? Why is our infrastructure collapsing and children drinking poisoned water? Why is it that the rich get much richer and now, through Citizens United, control our political system? So people all over the country, they're looking around and they're saying, this is not what America should be. We need change. We need real change. And what people are understanding is that real change is not going to come from a candidate who receives millions from Wall Street or the drug companies or the fossil fuel companies, from a candidate who voted for the war in Iraq, from a candidate who supports fracking. And what people understand is the only way we make real change is when millions of people stand up together and say that our government has got to represent all of us, not just wealthy campaign contributors. Now, many of you know that it is possible, we'll see what happens, that Donald Trump will be the candidate for president of the Republican Party. And let me tell you why Donald Trump will not be elected president if he is the Republican nominee. Now, many of you know that it is possible, we'll see what happens, and let me tell you why Donald Trump will not be elected president if he is the Republican nominee. He will not be elected president because the American people will not vote for a candidate who insults Mexicans and Latinos. They will not vote for a candidate who insults women, who insults Muslims, who insults the African American community. And I want you all to remember what I think too many have forgotten. A few years ago, before Trump was running for president, he was one of the leaders of the birther movement. That was an ugly and savage effort to delegitimize the presidency of Barack Obama. And people have the right to disagree with Obama on anything, that's fine. But what he was attempting to do is to suggest that President Obama was not a legitimate president, was not born in the United States of America. That is an incredibly ugly and dangerous thing to do. Now, I have found it very interesting. President Obama's father was born in Kenya. My father was born in Poland. I'm the son of an immigrant. But I have found it very interesting that nobody has ever asked me for my birth certificate. You think it might have something to do with my skin color? I think so. Donald Trump will not be elected president because the American people understand that bringing our people together, black and white and Latino and Asian American and Native American, straight and gay men and women, bringing people together always trumps dividing us up. The American people understand that coming together and supporting each other to help each other always trumps selfishness. And the American people most profoundly understand, and this is deep and maybe the most important thing, they understand what every major religion on earth has taught us: Christianity, Judaism, Islam, Buddhism, every religion, that at the end of the day, love trumps hatred. Tomorrow is a very important day. Tomorrow, Arizona has its primary, and I can tell you that what we have seen in this campaign is we do very well when the voter turnout is high. We do not do well when the voter turnout is low. So my request is that tomorrow, please come out to vote. Bring everybody you can. Lead this country into a political revolution. Thank you all very much.